The restaurant was spotless when Daniel Carter arrived. It was 4 in the morning, and the building was completely quiet. Daniel pushed his cleaning cart across the polished floor. He had been working at the restaurant for years. He was 38, a single father, and every extra shift he accepted had one purpose: his 6-year-old daughter, Sophie. Daniel checked his phone while wiping a table. There was a message from Sophie's school. Another payment reminder. Daniel sighed. Then he saw another message. Sophie needed to bring a family project to school that morning. Daniel had promised to help her. He had forgotten, not because he didn't care, because he had been working too much. Daniel sat at the restaurant's most expensive table. He pulled a small drawing from his pocket. It showed a little girl holding her father's hand. Underneath it were the words, "Daddy always keeps his promises." Daniel stared at the drawing. His eyes filled with tears. He quickly wiped them away. But another tear fell onto the table. "I promise you," he whispered. At that moment, Eleanor Whitmore entered the restaurant. Eleanor was a billionaire businesswoman and the owner of the restaurant. She had come early for an important business meeting. But instead, she saw Daniel sitting alone, crying. Eleanor stopped. She had seen wealthy businessmen cry. She had seen employees break down. But she had never seen someone cry over a child's drawing. She quietly walked toward him. "Daniel." He immediately stood. "Ms. Whitmore, I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize." "I'm fine." Eleanor looked at him. "You don't look fine." Daniel forced a smile. "It's just been a difficult morning." Eleanor noticed the drawing in his hand. "Your daughter?" Daniel nodded. "Sophie." "How old?" 6. Eleanor smiled slightly. "She's lucky to have you." Daniel looked away. "I don't always feel like that." "Why?" "Because she deserves better." Eleanor sat across from him. "What does she need?" Daniel hesitated. "Nothing she can ask for." "What does that mean?" Daniel looked at the floor. "Her school fees are due." Eleanor became silent. "I'll manage." "How?" "I'll take more shifts." "You already work almost every available shift." Daniel gave a small smile. "I can sleep later." Eleanor didn't smile. "That's not a solution." "It is when you're a father." Those words stayed with her. Later that morning, Eleanor checked Daniel's employment records. She discovered that he had worked hundreds of extra hours. He had never complained. He had never asked for special treatment. And every time he received overtime pay, most of it went towards Sophie. That afternoon, Daniel collected his daughter from school. Sophie ran into his arms. "Daddy." Daniel smiled. "How was your day?" "Good." "Did you finish the project?" Sophie's smile disappeared. "No." Daniel's heart sank. "I'm sorry. You were working." "I promise. You can help me tomorrow." Daniel hugged her tightly. "You shouldn't have to understand that." Sophie smiled. "I know you love me." That sentence nearly broke him. That evening, Daniel received a call from work. They needed someone to cover another shift. He looked at Sophie, then at the phone. "I'll do it." Sophie heard him. "Go, Daddy." Daniel knelt beside her. "I'll finish your project tomorrow." "Promise?" He smiled. "Promise." The following day, Eleanor came back to the restaurant. She found Daniel cleaning the same table. "Daniel." He turned. "Yes, Miss Whitmore?" "Sit down." He looked confused. "Am I in trouble?" "No." She sat opposite him. "I want to ask you something." Daniel waited. "Why don't you ever ask for help?" Daniel looked down. "Because I've already asked." "Who?" He took a slow breath. "Sophie's mother." Eleanor became serious. "Where is she?" "She left 5 years ago." "Why?" Daniel's voice became quiet. "She didn't want this life." He stared at his hands. "She didn't want the small house. She didn't want the financial problems. She didn't want a husband working 2 jobs. And Sophie, she left her too." Eleanor didn't know what to say. Daniel continued. "I never told Sophie the truth." "Why?" "Because she's 6. He looked up. She shouldn't have to carry an adult's decision. Eleanor felt something change inside her. She had built her fortune by becoming emotionally strong. But this man had become strong for a completely different reason. His daughter needed him. That was enough. Eleanor stood. Come with me? Daniel followed her into her office. She opened an old file. This is from 22 years ago. Daniel looked at the documents. What is it? My first charity foundation. She turned another page. I created it after someone helped me. Daniel looked at her. Who? Eleanor's eyes became wet. A young man. What was his name? She looked directly at him. Michael Carter. Daniel froze. That was his father's name. My father? Eleanor nodded. Your father gave me the last money he had when I was 19. Daniel couldn't speak. Why? I was stranded and had no way home. She smiled sadly. He gave me 23 pounds. Daniel stared at her. That was everything? Everything. What did he say? Eleanor wiped her eyes. He told me that one day, if I became successful, I should help someone else. Daniel sat down. His father's final kindness had become the foundation of Eleanor's entire life. But Eleanor wasn't finished. There is something else. Daniel looked up. What? Eleanor placed another document on the table. I tried to find your father years ago. Why? Because I wanted to repay him. Daniel's face tightened. What happened? Eleanor took a deep breath. I was told he had disappeared. Daniel shook his head. He never disappeared. Eleanor looked at him. I know. Daniel stared at her. What are you saying? Eleanor opened the final document. It contained a name Daniel had never expected to see. His father's name. Beside it was an address. And beneath the address was a date. The date was the day Michael Carter died. Daniel's hands began to shake. Eleanor whispered, Daniel, your father didn't leave you the way you were told. Daniel looked at her. What really happened? Eleanor pushed the document toward him, and the answer was about to change everything Daniel believed about his childhood. Daniel stared at the document. His father's name was printed clearly across the page. Michael Carter. Below it was an address Daniel recognized. It was a hospital where his father had spent his final days. Daniel's voice trembled. You knew about this? Eleanor shook her head. I only found the records recently. Then why did you say he disappeared? Because that's what I was told 22 years ago. Daniel looked confused. My father died when I was 14. I know. Then what are you trying to tell me? Eleanor opened another file. Your father contacted my foundation shortly before he died. Daniel stopped breathing for a moment. He contacted you? Yes. Why didn't you know? Because the message was never delivered to me. Eleanor showed him an old letter. The handwriting was unmistakably his father's. Daniel recognized it immediately. He touched the paper carefully. My dad wrote this? Eleanor nodded. Daniel began reading. The letter wasn't about money. It wasn't about himself. It was about Daniel. Michael had written that his son was struggling after his mother left. He was worried Daniel would grow up believing that people always leave. He wanted Eleanor to help if she ever found him. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. His father had been thinking about him until the very end. But then Daniel noticed something else. The letter mentioned a small savings account. Daniel frowned. What is this? Eleanor looked at the page. Your father said he had saved money for you. How much? We don't know. Why? Because the account was closed. Daniel looked confused. By who? Eleanor turned another page. There was a signature. Daniel recognized it. His mother's. He stared at the paper. For years, Daniel had believed his mother simply couldn't cope with losing his father. Now, he realized something different. She had taken the money his father left for him, and then she had disappeared. Daniel sat silently. Eleanor didn't interrupt. Finally, Daniel whispered, So my father didn't abandon us. No, he was trying to protect me. Yes. Daniel covered his face. He cried again. But these tears were different. They were grief mixed with relief. For years, he had carried an unanswered question. Why had his father stopped fighting? Now he knew. His father had never stopped fighting. He had simply run out of time. Eleanor reached across the desk. Daniel, I'm sorry. He wiped his eyes. You don't have to be. I should have found you sooner. You didn't know where I was. I should have tried harder. Daniel looked at her. You help people because of him. Eleanor nodded. Every year. Daniel smiled sadly. Then you kept your promise. Eleanor shook her head. Not completely. Why? Because I never found the person I was supposed to help. Daniel looked at her. You just did. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel remembered something. Sophie. Eleanor smiled. Yes. Daniel stood. I need to get home. Daniel. He stopped. What? I want to help with Sophie's school fees. Daniel immediately shook his head. No. It's not charity. Still no. Why? Because I've survived this long. Eleanor looked at him. Surviving isn't the same as living. Daniel had no answer. Eleanor continued. Let me honor your father's promise. Daniel looked at the old letter, then at Eleanor. Finally, he nodded. Only the school fees. Agreed. But Eleanor had another idea. She wanted to offer Daniel a better job, not because she felt sorry for him, because she had spent enough time watching him work to know his abilities. He understood the restaurant better than most managers. He knew every problem before customers noticed it. He could repair equipment, handle deliveries, train new employees, and most importantly, people trusted him. Eleanor offered him the position of operations supervisor. Daniel looked stunned. That's a management position. I know. I don't have a degree. I didn't ask about your degree. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Daniel hesitated. What about my cleaning job? You won't be cleaning tables anymore. He almost laughed. What if I fail? Eleanor smiled. Then we'll learn why. Daniel accepted. But his first day as supervisor brought an unexpected problem. A major investor arrived at the restaurant. He had come to inspect a business before approving a large investment. The restaurant manager panicked. A delivery had arrived late. Several tables were missing supplies. The kitchen was behind schedule. Everyone began blaming each other. Daniel stepped in. He organized the staff, solved the delivery issue, moved supplies, helped the kitchen. Within 30 minutes, everything was under control. The investor watched from across the room. After the meeting, he approached Eleanor. Where did you find him? Eleanor smiled. He was already here. The investor looked at Daniel. That man understands business. Eleanor nodded. I know. But Daniel's promotion created jealousy. One senior manager believed Daniel had received special treatment. He began telling employees that Daniel was only promoted because Eleanor felt sorry for him. Daniel heard the rumors. He ignored them. He had dealt with worse. Then one afternoon, the manager made a serious mistake. He approved a contract without checking the figures. The company stood to lose hundreds of thousands of pounds. Daniel noticed the problem. He immediately informed Eleanor. She reviewed the paperwork. Daniel was right. The manager was furious. You've been here 5 minutes and already think you know everything. Daniel remained calm. I checked the numbers. You were a cleaner. Daniel looked at him. Yes. And now you're pretending to be a manager? No. Daniel pointed to the contract. I'm trying to stop the company losing money. Eleanor stepped between them. That's enough. The manager left angrily. Later, Eleanor thanked Daniel. You didn't have to defend the company. Daniel smiled. It's my job now. Eleanor looked at him. No, it's more than that. Daniel didn't understand. She pointed toward the restaurant. You care about this place. Daniel looked around. I spent years cleaning those floors. And now, I still care they're dirty. Eleanor laughed. For the first time in a long time, Daniel saw her genuinely happy. Their relationship slowly changed. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was trust, respect, and a shared understanding of what family meant. Then, one afternoon, Sophie came to the restaurant. Daniel introduced her to Eleanor. Sophie looked up at the billionaire. Are you Daddy's boss? Eleanor smiled. Yes. Sophie thought for a moment. Are you nice? Daniel nearly laughed. Eleanor looked at Sophie seriously. I try to be. Sophie nodded. Good. Then she handed Eleanor a drawing. Eleanor looked at it. It showed Daniel standing beside Sophie. And now there was a third person. Eleanor. Daniel smiled. She added you. Eleanor's eyes became wet. Sophie pointed at the picture. Because Daddy needs someone to talk to. Daniel looked embarrassed. Sophie. What? Eleanor laughed softly. I think she's right. Daniel shook his head. But inside, something had changed. For the first time in years, his future didn't feel like an endless list of bills and shifts. It felt possible. Then Eleanor discovered one final piece of her father's promise. The original 23 pounds had never been the most important thing. Michael had left something else behind, a handwritten note, and the note contained a sentence Eleanor had forgotten, a sentence that would change Daniel's life again. When you find my son, don't give him what he needs today. Give him the chance to build what he needs tomorrow. Eleanor read the sentence twice. Then she looked at Daniel. She realized exactly what she had to do. But Daniel had no idea that Eleanor was about to offer him something far greater than money. She was about to give him the opportunity his father had wanted for him all those years ago. Eleanor placed the old letter on the desk. Daniel read the final sentence again. Give him the chance to build what he needs tomorrow. He looked at Eleanor. What does that mean? Eleanor smiled. It means I don't want to simply pay your bills. Daniel frowned. Then what do you want? I want you to build something of your own. Daniel laughed nervously. With what money? Not my money. Eleanor turned her laptop toward him. I want you to run a new business division. Daniel stared at the screen. The plan was for a small catering and hospitality company connected to Eleanor's restaurants. Daniel would manage it. He would have a salary, a percentage of the profits, and eventually ownership. Daniel couldn't believe it. You want me to become a business owner? I want you to have the opportunity. But why me? Because I've watched you work. She paused. You don't just clean tables. You solve problems. You notice people. You understand what customers need. And you know how hard ordinary families work for every pound. Daniel looked down. That was exactly what his father had wanted. Not a handout. A chance. Daniel accepted. Months passed. The small business grew quickly. Daniel hired other working parents. People who needed flexible hours. People who had been overlooked. People who understood what it meant to work hard while raising children. His first employee was a single mother named Claire. Then came a father named Thomas. Then several more. Daniel created a simple rule. If someone worked hard, they deserved an opportunity. Soon, his little division was serving events across the city. Eleanor watched from a distance. She was proud, but she was also learning something. Daniel had changed her. Before meeting him, Eleanor thought success meant having enough money, that nothing could hurt you. Now she understood that success meant having enough strength to help someone else stand. One afternoon, Eleanor visited Daniel's new office. Sophie was there after school. She was sitting at a small desk drawing pictures. Daniel was reviewing invoices. Eleanor walked in. Sophie looked up. You're late. Eleanor laughed. Excuse me? You promised to see my drawing. Eleanor smiled. I did. Sophie handed it to her. It showed 3 people standing beside a large building. What is this? Our company. Daniel smiled. She says you're part of it. Eleanor looked at Sophie. I am. Sophie nodded. You help Daddy. Eleanor looked at Daniel. I think your daughter has promoted me. Daniel laughed. The moment was simple, but it meant everything. Then Eleanor received a phone call. Her face changed. Daniel noticed immediately. What happened? The restaurant's main investor is withdrawing. Why? He received a better offer from a competitor. Daniel stood. How much money? Enough to cause serious problems. Daniel immediately began thinking. He reviewed the company's numbers. He studied the contracts. Then he noticed something. The investor wasn't actually the problem. The problem was an outdated supplier agreement. Daniel showed Eleanor. If we renegotiate this, we can save enough money to keep the expansion alive. Eleanor stared at the figures. You're right. They spent the afternoon working. By the end of the day, they had a solution. The investor stayed. The expansion continued. Eleanor looked at Daniel. You saved my company. Daniel smiled. No. What? You taught me how to believe I could. Eleanor became quiet. Then she hugged him. It was the first time either of them had done that. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Their friendship had become something deeper. Not because of money. Not because of business. Because they had become family. But there was still one unanswered question. Sophie's mother. Daniel had avoided the subject for years. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from her. She wanted to meet Sophie. Daniel was terrified. He didn't know what to do. He showed Eleanor the letter. What do you think? Eleanor didn't answer immediately. Do you want Sophie to meet her? Daniel looked at the floor. I don't know. You don't have to decide today. But what if she hurts Sophie? Then you protect Sophie. Daniel nodded. A week later, Daniel agreed to a meeting. It happened during the afternoon. Sophie sat beside him. Her mother arrived. She looked nervous. Sophie stared at her. Are you my mummy? The woman began crying. Yes. Sophie looked at Daniel, then back at her mother. Why did you leave? The woman couldn't answer. Daniel reached for Sophie's hand, but Sophie didn't cry. She simply said, I missed you. That sentence broke the woman's heart. She apologized. She explained that she had made terrible choices, but she didn't ask Sophie to forget. She only asked for a chance to become part of her life. Daniel agreed to take things slowly, for Sophie's sake. Months later, something unexpected happened. Eleanor received a letter from the hospital where Michael Carter had died. They had found an old box in their storage archive. Inside was a photograph. Daniel's father was standing outside the same restaurant where Daniel had worked for years. The photograph was dated shortly before Michael's death. Daniel stared at it. Why was Dad here? Eleanor checked the back. There was handwriting. I hope my son finds his way here one day. Daniel couldn't speak. His father had somehow known about the restaurant. But there was another note. If he does, tell him I was proud of him before he ever became a man. Daniel broke down. Eleanor held his shoulder. He knew. Knew what? That you would become the man you are. Daniel cried. Not from pain this time. From relief. For years. He had wondered whether his father would have been proud of him. Now he knew. He had been proud before Daniel had even grown up. That evening, Daniel returned to the restaurant. He walked toward the same table where Eleanor had first seen him crying. He stood there for a moment. Then he smiled. Eleanor walked over. Thinking about that morning? Daniel nodded. I thought my life was falling apart. It was changing. He smiled. You're right. Sophie ran into the restaurant. Daddy. Daniel picked her up. She laughed. Eleanor watched them. The little girl who had once drawn only two people now had an entire family around her. Daniel looked at Eleanor. Thank you. Eleanor shook her head. Your father started this. Daniel smiled. No. He looked at Sophie. I think he started it. Then he looked back at Eleanor. But you finished it. Eleanor smiled. The billionaire who had once believed money could solve everything had learned a different lesson. Sometimes the greatest thing you can give someone isn't money. It's dignity. It's opportunity. It's belief. And sometimes a single father crying at a restaurant table isn't a man who has failed. He's a man who's been strong for too long. Daniel never cleaned tables at 4 in the morning again, but he never forgot that table. He eventually placed a small plaque beside it. It read, Everyone deserves a second chance. Sometimes all they need is someone to believe in them. Years later, the business Daniel built employed hundreds of people. Sophie grew into a confident young woman. Eleanor remained close to the family. And Daniel kept one thing from his father's past, the old letter, the one that had changed everything. He kept it in his office, not as a reminder of sadness, as a reminder of a promise that had traveled across 22 years, from a young man with only 23 pounds in his pocket, to a billionaire who never forgot his kindness, to a single father who thought he had nothing left, and finally to a family that discovered what real wealth meant. Because sometimes life doesn't reward the person with the most money. Sometimes it rewards the person who keeps going, the person who keeps loving, the person who keeps his promises. And sometimes The person cleaning the tables at 4 in the morning is carrying a story powerful enough to change everyone around him.